This guy, Stan, is a fraudulent property dealer who made his fortune by deceiving people and selling them cheap properties at outrageous prices. Stan is everything we could wish for: a luxurious house, expensive cars, and a beautiful, loving wife named Mindy. However, one day, while he was in the middle of closing a deal with an elderly lady, the police show up and arrest Stan for his fraudulent activities, bringing him before the court. From his confidence, it's clear that Stan is used to situations like this and has always managed to get away with it due to his wealth and influence. However, he is left shocked this time when the judge sentences him to 3 years in jail due to the undeniable evidence against him. Stan can't digest the fact that he has to go to jail despite having so much wealth. He tells his lawyer to bribe the judge, but even so, the judge can't save him, and he has to serve at least 3 years. However, he's granted a 6-month parole to settle any personal matters before his sentence begins. Stan's lawyer advises him to flee the country and settle somewhere else, but all of Stan's money has been frozen by the bank, and he doesn't want to leave without it. In the evening, Stan and Mindy go out for dinner at a restaurant, where Mindy tells him that she wants a child so she won't feel lonely when Stan is in jail. However, Stan is against this idea, questioning what they would do with the child when he returns from jail. Children are permanent, and it would be better for them to get a dog. Hearing this, Mindy gets upset and leaves the restaurant. Later on, Stan heads to a bar to grab a drink, where he sees a powerful man with a tattoo on his hand that says "Property of State Prison." Stan strikes up a conversation with him and gives him $100 to learn more about life in jail. The man tells Stan that the guards in jail don't care about what the prisoners do to each other, and one needs to be very tough to survive. He warns Stan that rape is extremely common, and given his weak physique, powerful inmates gonna rape him all day. He explains that to avoid this, Stan needs to join one of the gangs in jail to be safe from his gang, but other gangs will still gonna raid him. As a piece of advice, he suggests that Stan get himself inked with a tough-looking tattoo. Stan reveals that he already has a tattoo of mommy on his shoulder, which doesn't really make him look tough but invite more rape. The man further adds that his first day will decide the rest of his years in jail, so he needs to beat up the most powerful inmate on his very first day to establish dominance. But Stan wonders how on earth he could possibly do that. Stan arrives home in tears, consumed by the fear of being raped all day in jail, and falls asleep. When he wakes up the next morning, he was filled with a sense of relief, thinking that it had all been nothing more than a dream. However, Mindy quickly reminds him that the prospect of going to jail was indeed a reality. Stan feels frustrated upon hearing this, but being a solution-oriented man, he makes a decision that in the next 6 months, he will make himself so tough that he will become unrapeable. He even began preparing himself mentally and physically for the possibility of facing assault in jail. He joins a karate class to become strong, but due to his stupid actions, he managed to get himself kicked out on the very first day. Outside, he meets an old man with an unsettling aura who introduces himself as the Master. As a display of strength, the Master breaks a concrete wall with a single punch, leaving Stan awestruck. Stan immediately decides to make this extraordinary individual his guru and learn Kung Fu from him. He brings the Master home and introduces him to Mindy. However, Mindy doesn't seem particularly fond of his presence and reminds him that smoking cigarettes is not allowed in the house. But the Master doesn't give a shit and keeps puffing away. Over dinner, Mindy asks the Master about his art of self-defense. The Master corrects her, explaining that what he teaches isn't an art but a science, which is a lethal blend of karate, kung fu, Wing Chun, Muay Thai, and more. His specialty is finding weaknesses and turning them into strengths. On the first day of training, the Master abruptly wakes Stan at 5 a.m. by dripping blood from an animal liver onto his face. Along with training, Master prepares various juices made from different species of animals for Stan to consume. His methods are brutal. Sometimes he strikes Stan's belly with burning sticks. Other times he clips and hangs him by his nipples. As for food, the only things Stan is allowed to eat are insects and worms. Due to the Master's unconventional methods, Mindy eventually reaches her breaking point and asks Stan to kick the Master out of their house. That night, Stan wakes Mindy in a state of panic and informs her that burglars have broken into their home and killed the Master. He further claims they want to rape her, scaring the hell out of Mindy. After she panics, Stan reveals it was all just a prank to help her understand what he's going through. Furious, Mindy becomes extremely upset with Stan for pulling such a prank and immediately breaks up with him before swiftly leaving the house. With Mindy gone, Stan becomes quite sad, but the Master seems extremely pleased. With all distractions gone, Stan throws himself completely into intense training for the next 5 months and eventually becomes a dangerous fighter. To test his abilities, Stan goes back to the very same karate teacher who had previously kicked him out. He provokes him into a fight and easily knocks the hell out of him. Finally, the day arrives for Stan's imprisonment. He is all fearless as he now has the skills to defend himself whenever he needs to. The master and the lawyer drop him off at the court, where Mindy watches him secretly from her car. As all the prisoners are being transported to jail on a bus, a fellow criminal sitting next to Stan tries to violate him. However, Stan quickly puts him in his place. He has also modified his tattoo from Mommy to Mommy Killer. Upon arriving at the jail, all the prisoners are greeted by Warden Gasquet, who lays out 2 important rules. First, not to bother the guards, or else they will bother them in return. And second, don't try to escape, otherwise they are going to get shot at sight. However, the prisoners are assured that whatever they do among themselves doesn't concern the authorities. During the cavity check, the new inmates are asked to strip and bend over. The guards are horrified when they see Stan's behind, which he has modified to look intentionally unpleasant. Following the cavity check, Stan goes to his cell, where he meets Larry, his cellmate. To assert dominance, Stan threatens Larry to give up the upper bunk, but when he learns that Larry used to masturbate on it, he quickly returns the bed. Stan asks Larry about the dynamics of the jail, and Larry explains that the inmates have formed gangs to fight each other. The first gang is made up of African Americans, the second is a group of Nazis, the third is a Mexican gang, and the fourth and most dangerous is a gang of Scientologists who kill people by talking too much. Larger than all of them is Big Raymond, the biggest sexual predator, who always hunts alone. However, the Black Gang usually backs him up whenever he's in trouble. Stan approaches Big Raymond and openly challenges him to a fight in front of everyone. Furious, Raymond comes after him, but Stan easily beats him up, breaking all his fingers and humiliating him in front of everyone. Witnessing this, the Nazi leader Patterson extends a hand of friendship to Stan, but Stan beats him up as well for no reason. Members of the Black Gang then come to take revenge on behalf of Raymond, but Stan single-handedly defeats them all while the guards enjoy the show. On his first day in jail, Stan establishes such dominance that all the inmates tremble in fear when they see him, and may clear the path for him wherever he goes. Stan begins to be known as Big Stan. A fellow inmate named Robbie approaches Stan to thank him for saving him from Big Raymond the previous day, but Stan makes it clear he did all this for himself and not to help anyone else. The next day, the warden calls Stan in his office and offers him a drink and a cigar before revealing that he purposely brought Stan to his jail because he needs his help to develop a jail property, given Stan's history of artificially raising property values. In exchange, the warden offers to secure Stan's release in just 1 year. Stan finds the offer appealing but asks the warden how he plans to shut down the jail, which the warden decides to keep it a secret. The following day, all the gang leaders team up and gather in the bathroom to kill Stan with a blade. However, Stan catches Patterson's reflection on the faucet and dodges the attack before beating the shit out of him. Later on, Stan misses Mindy and contacts his lawyer to inquire about her. The lawyer informs him that Mindy has yet to file for divorce, indicating that there might still be a chance for them. From the next day onwards, Stan begins assisting the warden in his property fraud scheme. He is introduced to a Vietnamese mafia, Dang, who works with the warden to sabotage the prison. Overhearing their conversations, Stan discovers that their plan is to make inmates fight each other, forcing the guards to shoot some of them. This would compel the Board of Governors to consider shutting down the prison altogether, because it is not being managed properly. Stan feels responsible for saving the lives of the inmates, even though they are out for his blood. He gathers all the inmates and implements new rules. Fighting is no longer allowed in the prison, and he removes all violent games, movies, and rap songs that negatively impact their minds. He further announces that harassment, bullying, or any form of rape are no longer allowed and all sexual interactions must be based on mutual consent. Following this, Dick Raymond forms a relationship with a fellow prisoner and eventually a positive change occurs in the jail as inmates stops fighting with each other and starts living happily together. Even if any conflicts arises, Stan intervenes and resolves the matter. Eventually, Stan receives a reply from Mindy to a letter he sent earlier. She expresses her forgiveness and promises to visit him the next day. True to her words, Mindy visits jail, and she and Stan share an intimate moment. However, Stan suddenly becomes upset upon realizing that Mindy has been living with the master all along. As he vents his anger at her, a guard arrives and escorts Stan to the warden, who is furious over Stan's efforts to end violence in the jail. The warden threatens Stan that he will face the nature of fighting. Warden is happy to see this, but Larry becomes upset with Stan and starts to leave. Stan, however, grabs his hand and quietly warns him to stay away from the wiring fence that afternoon. Larry realizes that Stan is being forced into something against his will, so he discreetly informs the other inmates about Stan's situation. Meanwhile, the warden arranges a meeting for Stan with the parole board to discuss his early release. However, Stan pretends to be a worthless prisoner during the meeting by praising the orgies of one of the board members so that he can end the meeting quickly and alert the other inmates about the warden's brutal plan. On his way out, however, he is intercepted by Dane, who reveals that he also learned Kung Fu from the master and is actually his #1 student. A brutal fight ensues between the two Kung Fu masters, with Dane initially overpowering Stan, but Stan soon manages to defeat him using his finger of death technique. Meanwhile, all the inmates gather in the yard with weapons, seemingly ready to fight each other, while the guards stand ready to open fire. However, to everyone's surprise, the prisoners start dancing to a Mexican song, leaving the warden stunned. Even the guards and board members start vibing to the beat. Witnessing his plan unravel, Warden grabs a gun from a guard and recklessly opens fire on the prisoners without cause. The board warns him that he'll face jail time for his actions, but consumed with revenge, the warden points the gun at Stan. Just as he's about to pull the trigger, Mindy arrives in the nick of time and saves Stan. It is revealed that Mindy has spent the past 6 months training under the master. The master tells Stan that even though he defeated Dang, he is still only his second best student, as Mindy is now #1. The scene then shifts to 3 years later, on the day of Stan's release from jail. All the prisoners are quite emotional upon witnessing Stan leave, and Patterson even gets a tattoo of Stan on his body. After stepping out of jail, Mindy and the master arrive to pick him up, along with a 3-year-old baby. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.